Jesus freak here. I'm going to point out that the whatever or negative comments I make about Church of Rome or about the Church of Rome and have nothing in particular to do with parishioners. I do believe that the Church of Rome has many false beliefs. I believe there are a lot of other churches with false beliefs too, so they're kind of low hanging fruit. I usually go after certain topics. I believe that there are many honest people who seriously believe the Bible. They might not even see the point in the disputes over stuff like Deuterocanon and, all this other stuff specific to the Church of Rome. So, for them, they might be serious, honest, true believers, and the only reason they're in the Church of Rome is inertia. They're probably the easiest to reach. But when they're deeper into the Catholic doctrine, and you can have people that are deep into Catholic doctrine and aren't even Catholic. This especially is true for higher church denominations like various Anglican groups, like the Episcopal Church. Methodists are basically Anglicans in this respect. Although you're probably less likely to find Methodists that are full-bore Anglo-Catholics than you are Episcopalians who are full-bore Anglo-Catholics. I know I have Catholics who watch my videos. And I'm going to say the same thing I always say, come at her. I've spoken at length on my issues with the Deuterocanon. I think I've left out the books that even Catholics don't accept. But I've talked about my problems with Tobit and Judith, for example. And why I think that the ultimate call that reformers made, first to separate the books that were considered Deuterocanon at the time off into an appendix, and then finally to just not include them. Why I think that was the right call. I think I've even mentioned issues with Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. and why I don't really think any of the so-called Deuterocanon should be considered canon. But I tend to focus on the New Testament, and this probably makes it easier to deal with the situation. The New Testament is the New Testament. Whether you're a Protestant like me, whether you're a Catholic, and I hate to use the word because, the Catholic Church is not one holy Catholic or apostolic. I've gotten into that. That's why I usually say Church of Rome. But we at least agree on the extent of the New Testament. And it's through the new that I attempt to do my outreach. I don't focus so much on the old. I mean, you have to understand the Old Testament to understand the New. But that's secondary. We can agree on the text as far as the New Testament goes, and most of the Old. And that can be beneficial. I try to deal with Catholic translations of Scripture when dealing with Catholics because I don't want to give them the idea that we're trying to destroy their faith in Scripture. And honestly, while you're still in Church of Rome, one of these Protestant Bibles is supposed to be toxic to your faith. And I usually prefer to say, look, toxic to the falsehoods that the Church of Rome promulgates, sure. But if you're serious in the faith, and I think a lot of people in that Church of Rome are, I can use, I think, a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Apologeticist, maybe? But someone who's good at this is going to be able to use a Catholic Bible, whether it be Challoner or Nabre or whatever, to bring people out of the Catholic doctrines to a place where the most important thing isn't what the church has taught for 2,000 years, but what Holy Writ teaches. And I know people are going to say, you talk, oh, you Protestants are always talking about sola scriptura, but you're not sola scriptura. You have traditions just like we do. Yes, that's why I don't call it sola scriptura. I call it prima scriptura, because I believe that's more accurate. I understand the objections. I'm going to say that I think that the traditions, I don't have a problem with the traditions so long as they don't interfere with what Scripture itself teaches. And Jesus said the same thing. He wasn't bashing the Jews for the traditions. He was bashing them because some of their traditions flew right in the face of Scripture. I mean, I'm going to talk sometimes about how I have issues with the logos like this because they remind me of the Church of Rome. But I ain't going to destroy a Bible or something over it. I know there's some people who would go that far. I think there's some people who are so tied to their idea that the Church of Rome is evil, that they forget that there's human beings in that church. People who can be reached, and not just, your church is evil! You gotta use logic and reason. The same as dealing with anyone outside. But you have an advantage. We have an advantage. They're not that... This is even more so with someone like me. They're not that different. If you've seen some of my videos, you can definitely see that as a Methodist, there's a lot of Catholic influence on my own faith. I even have admitted that I'm culturally Catholic, even though my doctrines are not Catholic by any means. The fact that I have more familiarity with, Catholic teachings in a true sense, and not, this is what Jack Chick says about the Catholic Church. But I want to reach out to these people. I want to point them to the fact that God and His teachings should be more important than what human beings come up with. Now, I don't care what human beings they are. Even if it's me. I'm no one special. I've talked sometimes about various things that are usually associated with the church. I use the Latin Vulgate from time to time. I know there's a lot of people in Protestant traditions, they'll say, hey, you're using a Roman Bible? No, there's nothing wrong with that. The Latin Vulgate is what it is. And if you take it for what it is, it does what it set out to do quite well. The Old Testament especially. Omit the Deuterocanon and the Apocrypha, and don't worry about the New Testament, and use the Juxta-Hebraica Psalter instead of the one that's usually included, and you have something that's actually a really good translation, for the most part, of the Hebrew Masoretic text. I think a lot of people don't realize this. If you know the limitations of the source material, you realize it's actually pretty good. That's why I don't have problems using those resources, even if they come from the Church of Rome. And maybe I can use those to help convince people to get out of there. That's my approach. Jesus, freak out.